Hey, Den of Geek fans, Aaron Sagers here at South by Southwest 2024 in the Den of Geek studios, and I am joined by the director and star of the time travel flick Omni Loop, Mary-Louise Parker, and Bernardo Britto.
You got it.
I don't know that I did, but I would say it was an effort.
It was. I appreciate the effort, and I think you did a great job.
I really enjoyed this film, and it is sort of about time travel, but not about time travel. And I was curious from your perspective, what was it that drew you into this role? What was the attraction?
Other than the part itself, it was really entirely Bernardo, because I saw his film Hudson Geese, and it just really blew me away. I thought it was like phenomenal. And then I had a conversation with him. It was the first time we talked, and we talked for like over 2 hours, and then we got disconnected, and then we talked more. And I just felt like I would have really done almost any project with him. And I still feel that way, even more so, actually.
Well,
It's true.
I don't think it's spoiling too much to say that your character, Zoya, she has a black hole growing.
It's in there in the very first 30
Correct.
seconds of the movie. I feel like you get black hole in the chest right
You
in
get
there.
that out there.
Yeah, we see the X-ray right away,
Yeah.
and then it's not perhaps surprising. It's a terminal situation, but then we have these time travel pills that are involved in the mix. Bernardo, from your perspective as both the writer and the director of this, what was it about the time travel kind of mechanism that you wanted that drove you to tell this story? Like, why time travel?
There's dual purposes of time travel, where it's also you get to see this whole person's life. There's time travel in the sense where she's literally going back in time 5 days, but then there's also this other weird time travel that's happening where she is going back to a school that has the same equipment that she used to have at Princeton, or even the same professor is there, and she's doing the same things that she used to have, and she's sort of reliving it in the present. And then there's also just the flashbacks and existing in this state where you're here in the present, but you're always thinking about the past and the memories and things that you've had. And so I'm just fascinated by time and how we perceive time and all of that. Did I do a good job answering? I got distracted.
Good. Yeah.
Did it kind of make you consider how you perceive time, how humans kind of perceive time? Did you kind of go down that rabbit hole during the production of this film where you were thinking more about it?
I'm usually in a rabbit hole of some kind.
I feel like this
don't
is why
think
we
this sent
got
me
along.
into another one.
Yeah.
But I think one thing that, it's a conceit that people use a lot dramatically, sometimes people going back in time. And I think it's because we do that unconsciously, I think, all the time. People, without even realizing it throughout the day, we think, oh, why did I do that? Or why did I walk down that street? Why did I have to like trip over that? Why did I say that to that person? I think we do it in little micro ways that don't even, start to touch on the sort of meta regrets that people carry around. So I think that makes people, it's very human to think back and wish you could just do a little finessing of the past.
Yeah, and then to get into the sort of heady sci-fi of it too, where the rules in this movie, we almost imply that every time she goes back, we sort of start a new timeline, and that these other timelines are continuing too. And that idea of like what's going on in those other timelines, or what are those other versions of me, or what could I have been in those other universes, the multiverses, very, very trendy multiverses.
Yeah. Your character is also runs into, literally,
yeah. Meet cute, bump in, papers fall down.
Yes, with this scientist, this student, played by Adande, yes, and she talk about the dynamic with that character on screen, and also the relationship that you developed off screen with her.
I guess both on and off screen, it was very immediate with us, and it was very easy and very comfortable. And I feel like we both had the same goals, of like trying to mine as much as we could and trying to also like leave as much space around the story and not make it about like our individual characters. It's almost like our characters together. It's the relationship that's more important than, it's the sum that's more important than, you know, each individual character. So I feel like it was really quick with her. I felt really, really lucky for that.
Do you think that with a lot of the time travel concepts within this film as well, that there's almost an inherent selfishness about it? That people, when they talk about time travel, some people say they have grand ideas about going back in time and changing some historical moment, but ultimately it comes down to us. We make it about us.
It's like reincarnation. Like most people don't say, like, I really feel that I was a janitor in my life. It's always like I was the Marquis de Sade or I was, you know, Marilyn Monroe. For me, it's a terrifying idea, but I find time kind of terrifying anyway. But I think because I have children also, the idea of tampering with anything that would tamper with them or with my experience of them is quite terrifying.
Yeah, I remember watching, while I was writing this movie, I watched Peggy Sue Got Married. And the whole time she's like trying to go back in time to like hook up with the other boyfriend in the high school. And I was like, but then you're going to destroy your daughter. I was like, wait, don't do that.
Right.
So I remember this movie is sort of, there's the funny thing where she's just not really considering what is happening to her family after. And then that moment where she has to consider it, I feel like, yeah.
There's a couple things happening, at least it seemed to me, and I guess maybe it's, like I said, coming originally from Florida. We have this Miami setting where the weather sometimes feels like nothing ever changes. Maybe time doesn't pass. Was that an intentional consideration going into the film? That's why you set it in Miami, or?
I think there were a couple things with Miami. That's part of it. Growing up there, I felt very trapped by it for some reason. I can't quite explain it, and now I like really love it and you know, have a lot of friends there and really miss it when I'm not there. But part of it was doing a somewhat melancholy story about a person at the end of their life, but in this beautiful tropical setting. And then I think the other thing that's interesting about Miami is that it's a relatively new city. You know, really only people started living there after air conditioning. And it's a lot of, you know, immigrants who've come in there. And then I'm an immigrant myself. And then I don't think it's going to be around for very much longer because of climate change. It is... You know, the city's built on porous limestone. The water's coming up from under the ground, and they say by like 2050 that the city will be underwater. And so it's this strange city that doesn't have a real, you know, outsized past, but it also doesn't have much of a future, and it kind of exists in this state where they're still building things, but for what end? And I hope they are able to figure something out, or I hope we as a species are able to figure something out to
Probably because of the arrogance and hubris of man. Even if we had access to some sort of time travel mechanism to go back and do better, we would probably make the same mistakes in the past with climate, right?
Yeah.
There's also something I found it very interesting that since she has this terminal illness and she is given this maybe a week to live, her family is acting very awkward and in many ways making it about them and them finding closure. And there's also this sort of tedium of time passing when you're like, okay, death is right around the corner, but there's this sort of tedium that surrounds it. Does that speak to sort of the experience of illness that you're kind of trying to tap into?
I think so. I think it was also, they're not really talking about the thing. They're talking all around the thing, but they're not really dealing with the thing. So it's a lot of distraction, right? It's a lot of like, oh, we'll do this birthday party, or we'll go into the office to see the publishers, but they're not really engaging with the thing, and so they're not really connecting. It's just about sort of shifting that perspective a little bit, I think. Yeah, I don't know. Terminal illness is a tricky thing. I remember talking to Carlos, who plays Donald, who's so great in the movie, and I remember talking to him about when his parents were in the hospital, and he said that he just spent like what felt like half an hour just staring at the plushies that they had in the vending machine at the hospital. And I feel like you're just trying not to think about the inevitable, and you're just trying to have some sort of hope, but that keeps you in this weird cycle where it's just like, now they're okay, and then now they're not, and now it's worse, and now it's better, and it's just sort of like, you never really want to consider the possibility of it, but you just sort of live with it every day.
As an actor and your character, you're dealing with this big thing as you're traveling through time, this kind of epic situation, and yet annoyingly having to reenact the same moments over and over again. That tedium, that kind of annoying rhythm that keeps playing out. Was that tedious? Was that challenging to keep doing it over and over again?
It was challenging in a great way. I think the minutia of it made it really interesting to me. It was hard to know sometimes which way to go, and luckily Bernardo was able to keep it so organized in his mind. That was pretty
sometimes we'd be
astonishing,
shooting
I
things
thought.
where it's just like we're shooting like 10 different times, but right now all in the, and I'm like, this is this version of the time loop, and then this is that version, and this is right after this has happened, but we're shooting them all back to back to back.
Versions inside of versions, and I sort of love that untangling all of that.
Yeah, because I think it also gets to where Zoe is at in the movie. I think she does sort of feel so untethered from time in a way where it all is kind of happening or not happening. I feel like there's that moment in the movie where they're entering the lab over and over again, and she doesn't even quite know how long it's been.
Well, I really commend you. It gets super nerdy and definitely has, you can tell that you did your homework, and yet also a lot of powerful emotions connected to it as well. So the film is Omni Loop, and I'm joined by Mary-Louise Parker and Bernardo Britto. Thank you guys for
Thank you.
being
Thank you
with
very
me.
much.
Thanks.
Thank you.